Welcome to Fox Soul's Black Report, the space where we bring you Black America's news, views, and opinions. Today is Thursday, January 6th, 2022. I'm Seth Lemon.
Peace and love. I'm Nielle.
I'm Romeo.
I'm Demi Lobo, and on today's report, congressional lawmakers marked the one-year anniversary of the insurrection at the U.S. Capitol. Attorney General Merrick Garland vows to continue prosecuting those who are responsible, all as the White House prepares to formally address the nation on voting rights.
Plus, authorities identified a suspect wanted for the murder of rapper Young Dolph. And Airbnb makes changes to combat discrimination when booking while Black.
We have an important show for you today, and you know why, because it's our voice and it's our truth from our perspective. So let's get to it.
Addressing the nation this morning, President Joe Biden, he squarely placed the blame for last year's riot at the U.S. Capitol on Donald Trump as we mark the anniversary of it today. Biden, refusing to name the former president by name, condemned him as a defeated and former president. Vice President Harris also spoke today, and she said that the violent assault reflects how fragile democracy really is.
On that day, I was not only vice president-elect, I was also a United States Senator, and I was here at the Capitol that morning at a classified hearing with fellow members of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Hours later, the gates of the Capitol were breached.
The vice president spoke to the nation, and so did President Biden. Here's what he had to say.
We saw with our own eyes rioters menace these halls, threatening the life of the Speaker of the House, literally erecting gallows to hang the Vice President of the United States of America. What did we not see? We didn't see a former president who had just rallied the mob to attack, sitting in the private dining room off the Oval Office in the White House, watching it all on television and doing nothing.
Now, Donald Trump had planned to hold an event from his home in Mar-a-Lago today as well, a competing news conference, but it reportedly was canceled after some aides suggested that probably would have garnered him some negative political coverage.
Joining us now to discuss the impact of the Capitol riots on our nation is Congressional Black Caucus member, Representative Troy Carter from the Big Easy state of Louisiana. Welcome, Congressmember.
Thank you very much. Glad to be with you.
We're honored to have you. Let's start. What's your response to President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris's speech this morning?
I thought the president and the vice president did an excellent job at chronicling the events of 2021. They were very clear that what happened in our nation's capital was, in fact, an insurrection, an attack on our very democracy. And everyone, Republican or Democrat, that views what happened on January 6, 2021, should be outraged. This was not an attack on Democrats. This was an attack on our democracy, on our rule of law, on our Constitution, on the nation's house. And I think the president and the vice president did an excellent job at spelling out the fact that we cannot afford to allow anyone to damage or trample our Constitution or our Congress.
I agree. Congressman, thank you for joining us today. How much responsibility does Donald Trump hold for the attack on our democracy?
I think it's pretty clear that the president, a former president, was at the switches of at least encouraging the kind of violence that we saw acted out, that President Trump was a part of the discussion, and evidence is playing out as a part of the January 6th Commission that will bear some relief soon, that we'll see that there was communications between senior members of his staff and potentially members of the United States Congress that are presently seated. And how disturbing is that to think that that was that level of conspiracy that was going on? So we know that the president, with a single tweet or message or press release or press conference or any statement at all, could have calmed the waters and stopped these, and I'm going to call them what they are in my mind, domestic terrorists, terrorists that attacked our country, attacked our rule of law. President Trump had the ability and did not stop it. And I think there's a strong argument out there to suggest that the discussions that happened among his White House and the actors in this case, the bad actors in this case, that there's connectivity.
Congressional Black Caucus member Representative Troy Carter, thank you again for joining us today. So you were not on Capitol Hill on that day. However, you did witness the aftermath. So can you let us and our soulmates know what was the mood like then, and what's the sentiment on Capitol Hill today, an entire year later?
Well, I was running for Congress at the time. I got elected shortly thereafter, and I was sworn in May. So while this was going on in real time, I was a candidate back in Louisiana, watching this, as many other Americans, in awe and total disgust of watching such a horrific act of aggression on American soil carried out by America. And now here we are, a year later, to come back and say thank you to many of those brave law enforcement agents, brave members of Congress, brave staffers who had to endure something that you would expect to see in a B-rate movie, or something that you would expect to see in a third world country, not in America. So here we are a year later, a year smarter, a year stronger, and we won. The insurrection is lost. Democracy prevailed. Shortly that day, Congress reconvened and continued the business of the people. And here we are a year later, and we're still moving forward with advancing those issues that are important to the people. So that attack, that attempt to defile Congress, to defile our democracy, didn't work. And this country has overcome great obstacles before, and here we are 365 days later, and we're still standing. And the message should be strong. Our democracy is fragile but firm. We are going to always stand against any aggression that attempts to topple the rule of law and the Constitution that sets forth the rules by which we govern our country.
Representative Carter.
No man, no group, no posse, no vigilantism will stop that.
Representative Carter, Seth Lemon here. CBC Chairwoman Joyce Beatty, she called today an infamous day and a painful stain that's going to resonate for years to come. And Representative James Clyburn said that today's forever going to be a day of discredit and disgrace. Does the rhetoric like this from black lawmakers help history books more accurately portray the day?
I mean, the history is what it is. The words that were used by our chairman, Joyce Beatty, and by our Majority Whip, Mr. Clyburn, are accurate. And that's the problem with how we view history now. We try to whitewash it. We try to make it more acceptable. History is history. It is what it is. And we have to accept the good, the bad, and the ugly. And unfortunately, this was bad and this was ugly. And it is, in fact, a stain. But it's a stain that we should view as a lesson and a roadmap of how we never let it happen again. How we stand firm that we are not going to succumb to tyranny. We're not going to succumb to people who, when they don't get their way, decide that they're going to overthrow the government. Listen, we all have elections that come and go. We have elections that we win and we lose. We have policy battles that we agree and disagree on. But you don't throw away the Constitution, the rule of law, or the policies that set forth because you didn't get your way. In fact, their comments are correct. It is an ugly stain on America, but it's one that we prevailed in, and we should recognize that. Don't let those who would try to somehow paint a picture that this didn't happen, that this was exuberant tourists. No, they weren't. They weren't exuberant tourists. People lost their lives. People were violated. And as a result of it, we have this stain that our country has to bear. But at the end of the day, what's most important with that stain is they didn't win. Our democracy still stands.
Right, and we know our country has many stains when it comes to Black America, and voting is one of them. And voting is at the center of what took place at the Capitol. Talk to us about the correlation between what happened on January 6th and the fight for voting rights today.
Well, if you look at what's happening in Florida, you look at what's happening in Texas, there's some that would prefer to dial back that fundamental right that we have as Americans to cast our vote for whoever we choose. And if the federal government, the Senate in this case, does not move forward, we find ourselves going backwards, not forward. So the correlation between the threat of what happened on January 6, 2021, and where we are today is we still have a lot of work to do. We still have to pass the voting rights measures that are now before the United States Senate to make sure that we don't allow states to undo and unravel that precious right that we have to exercise our right to vote. As you know, the United States Congress has passed those measures, and they now await action in the U.S. Senate. And we have to make sure that we remain vigilant, that we stay ever present in the discussion, that we are not going to allow our voting rights and the gains that we've made to go backwards. We're going to continue forward. Reach out to those members of the Senate. Remind them that people should come before politics. We can no longer have this notion, not my party, not my politics, not my problem. The American people deserve better, and we're going to fight until they get it.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Congressmember Carter, and we definitely want to continue the dialogue with you. So until then, God bless.
Yeah. God bless you all. Keep up the great work, and I look forward to visiting with you again soon.
We appreciate that. A new accountability initiative estimates more than 1,000 public servants were accomplices to the former president's attempts to overturn the 2020 election. The shocking number reveals how deeply rooted the pro-Trump sentiment became as it spread across the country. The Insurrection Index is working to identify and hold accountable all of those who supported the impeached president to hold on to power despite losing the election. Individuals named as accomplices include 30 former law enforcement officers and 7 current school board officials. It's important that we get this information out there to our soulmates and the people that have the right to vote. And what is a position of public trust? I want to let our soulmates know that. We're talking about people that are involved with policy making, major program responsibility, and law enforcement duties. Also, customs and border protection, as well as immigration. So it's almost like when we talk about certain police officers and police departments, how they have people in there that are good, and then you have that one bad apple that does not allow you to grow. That's what this situation is, and we have to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I'm really happy that someone took it upon themselves to create the Insurrection Index. And I really liked, I went on the website to try to see what exactly it is. Super extensive. You can literally break it down by name, by state, location status, what type of charge, if they were sentenced, the organization affiliation, what type of, I mean, it is super extensive. And I think this is a step in the right direction.
Yeah, 1,400 records of people that are about to go live on the internet tomorrow. That's a huge number of folks that are going to be held accountable potentially for their participation.
Twitter has created a team to prepare the social networking site to address any harmful content associated with the Capitol riots, the company told Reuters. Other social media platforms, including Twitter and Facebook, were accused of enabling extremists to organize the siege on January 6th. Twitter said in a statement that the company gathered a cross-functional working group comprised of members across its site integrity trust and safety teams, which is specific to the anniversary of the attack on the Capitol. It will watch for risks such as tweets and accounts that incite violence. This is great, of course. Facebook and Twitter have definitely been under fire for not protecting rhetoric that goes on their platform. So we didn't get a chance to talk about the Biden story, but really quick, and Biden, when he was calling out Trump this morning, I don't know if you guys got a chance to see, he called him out on 3 big lies. And the 3 big lies were that the insurrection happened on Election Day. The second lie was that the 2020 election cannot be trusted, and that the results of the 2020 election cannot be trusted as well. It was 3 different lies. I might have repeated one here, but I love that everyone is really coming forward and putting Trump's feet to the fire and keeping our feet on his neck, because he needs it right now.
What I find more interesting is that Donald Trump is expected to release a social media platform called Truth Social. We know that just this week, David Nunes, the Congress member, he just resigned, and he's going to be over there with Truth Social running it. And so as we look at the midterms, as we look at what's happening in our country, people should be afraid of the type of messaging that Donald Trump is gearing up to push out with this new social platform. And so I think it's good, and it's ever so important that these social platforms like Twitter, like Instagram, like Facebook really tighten up their rules and regulations as we gear up for Donald Trump's Truth Social.
Yeah, it seems that they've learned their lesson from last year, because it took them a while, it felt like, to make any decisions to finally ban the former president's account. And now they've compiled this team to keep a watchful eye over it, probably because of how people are looking at big tech overall. Congress is really taking them to task to figure out how to address these issues.
Mm-hmm.